Hey y'all. Okay. I think we live on every front now. What is going on? Happy Monday. So, I am back for another episode of our birth stories. And so, y'all know a little bit of backstory. Y'all know I've been doing this series for about 2 weeks now, I think. I started this Our Birth Story series where I go live with a mom who wants to share her birth experience, a Black mom who wants to share her birth experience. And it started from Black Maternal Health Week, right? And it started because, oftentimes, or what I discovered over my many years of doing like a lot of advocacy work is that not a lot of us are open about our childbirth experiences or our pregnancy experiences. And there's so many different things happening now with Black moms. And as you all may know, um, there's so many disparities, like medical disparities from preeclampsia to maternal morbidity rates to just complicated pregnancies in general. And so, we never really talk about it in depth and just have a space where we can just share like our own experiences. And so what I wanted to do, and I think I mentioned in the last live, was that I had been wanting to do this for a while, but never got around to it. And so when Black Maternal Health Week came, I was like, let me just do it, right? And I posted about it, and so many people, text me or contacted me and said that they wanted to share their stories. And I was so grateful for that because, I didn't want it to be a platform that's like real stuck up where people feel like, they can't share their full experience. I just wanted it to be just a safe space, an open space to just share freely. And so I came up with this idea of Our Birth Stories. And so we've been doing right now, today, we are on episode 5. So I'm super excited about it because, um, you know, I just like to give people an opportunity to just kind of share their experiences. Like, I know for me, like sharing my own personal experience over the years was very healing, right? And not only because I got to like speak like my experience and my truth, but just to see so many other people relate, right? And you know that you're not alone, you're not by yourself. Then you start to learn other people's experiences and you realize, like, wow, like, either my experience wasn't as bad as I thought it was, or just something as simple as, okay, it wasn't my fault. Like, this happened to other women too. So here we are on episode 5, and today my guest is a young lady who honestly we never met before in person, right? But I've been following her for a while, and I don't even know how I started following her, but she is a therapist, and I'm assuming like this is why I follow her because we're both in the field of mental health, and like I always just thought like she always posting like dope content around therapy and things of that nature. And so when she inboxed me and said, I'm interested, I was like, oh my goodness, like, cool. And then when she started to tell me more about her story, I was just kind of like, wow, like this is an experience. So I thought like we should have her on, and she wanted to come on and share her story. And this will be her first time sharing her story. So I'm excited about it. I'm happy to hold space for her, but I'm also happy that she wants to. So I am going to allow her to come on so she can introduce herself and she can just really talk about her practice, her business. She does have a private therapy practice located in Tampa, Florida, but I'll let her tell you more about that before we get into like what we really here for. But I do want to give her that opportunity. So I'm going to bring her on so that she can introduce herself. Hey, Kai, can you hear me? Hold on one second.
Uh,
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Hey,
good.
welcome.
Hi.
How
Thank
are
you. Thank
you?
you. Well, I got a 4 week old this month, so we're doing the things. We
Well,
are doing the things.
congratulations on your
Thank
baby.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
I know it's
you.
like a real complex time, but also, you know, just a moment for celebration because you we here. So
Absolutely.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to put him down for a nap and he was like, "Girl, I want to be a part of the scene." So, we're here together. He's my co-host. He's going to be both of our co-hosts today.
Yes. What's his name?
Silently, hopefully. His name is Kason.
Hey,
Yeah.
Kason.
Say
Welcome.
hey.
I love
Yes.
this actually because I feel like this is just a part of our story. Like with my daughter 14 now, but if she could be just kind of lingering around, she probably would be. So it's absolutely okay. I love that he's here and he's
Yes.
close to his mama. So that's
Yes.
good. So I wanted
Thank
to give
you.
you an opportunity to really just tell us about your business, who you are, like what are some of the things that got you into your field, and just kind of share more about your business.
It's Kieara Pittman, as you said. I'm a licensed therapist here in Tampa, Florida. My therapy practice is called Sisterhood and Wellness. And I've been in practice for about 6 months. I'm on break, obviously, because of my baby now, but I'm so excited to get back and to start seeing my girls again, as I like to call them. So, um, it's been a journey. Prior to starting my own practice, I was a part of a group practice for 2 years. And prior to that, I was in the military for 8 years where I did addictions counseling. So therapy has been a part of my world for the better part of my adult life.
Good, good.
Yeah.
So you only service women, correct?
I don't want to say that. I do have some men. They're typically attached to a couple. And
Okay.
so I'll see like the couple first, and maybe sometimes the male wants to be seen separately, or the male comes in first, and then I end up seeing their partner as well. So, I mean, sisterhood is definitely for the girls, but men are welcome too.
Okay, good, good. What is your specialty? Is it still like addictions and substance use, or have you transitioned to doing like other things as well?
Yeah, I've transitioned more into self love. A lot of my clients, the majority of them struggle with self image, loving themselves, depression, anxiety, and just overall women issues like fertility, and trying to navigate corporate America and things like that. So just holding space and teaching them how to see themselves and love themselves and show up for themselves has been kind of the theme for my practice lately.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
good. Being in this field, and now that we're talking about, Black maternal health, so being in this field, do you find that a lot of women come for therapy or seek therapy because of maternal issues?
I would say no. I would think that it when well wait, let me clarify. When you say maternal issues, do you mean like maternal issues with their moms or just in having a baby or
Just
trying?
in having a baby or starting a
Okay.
family, things around childbirth.
I would practice yet. I would like to do a lot more work around maternal wellness with women, but for me, it's more so after they've had the baby and trying to navigate being a mom and coming back to themselves and being able to have balance between motherhood and just being a woman.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that more so for in my practice lately, but I definitely welcome the maternal childbirthing part of it. That is something that I'm interested in working with.
Got you. Got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know. Um, Another question I have, now that you're mentioning like, all the things that you've done and all your
Hmm.
accomplishments,
Hmm.
do you find that the military, because you all have like your own like type of medical system and think like with the VA and stuff. So do you
Hmm.
find that do they have like any like special support for families who may experience like difficult childbirths or pregnancies, or do you find like that's a common thing in the military?
Oh, it varies. I know that for my personal experience, there was a lot of help with because I struggled with infertility. So there was a lot of help with trying to get me pregnant. But when it comes to the resources during, sometimes even after, they're a little bit limited. And I
Mhm.
don't think it's because there's not a need, but I don't think there's a lot of resource. And when
Mhm.
you're in the military, the goal is to get, for me, I was in the Navy, so the goal is to get sailors back to sea, right? The goal is to get sailors working and doing their jobs. And so it's
Mhm.
like, oh, you having problems? Oh, we, let fix this real quick so you can get back to doing your job.
Mhm.
And so there's not a whole lot of space to just sort of be and feel. It's like, okay, go do your little.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, okay. Well, thank you for your service. So I
Thank
definitely want to say that. So we can get into it. I do have a couple questions. I like to usually start off by talking about our childhood experiences growing up and
you.
how much we were or were not exposed to stories about childbirth, pregnancy, motherhood. Like, was that an open conversation for your family when
Mhm.
you were growing up? Do you remember having like those types of conversations with women in your family about their experiences?
Ooh, not about childbirth. Would like to preface by saying that my grandma had 9 children.
Mm.
And so, she was definitely doing the thing. And I was, I spent a lot of time with her as a child. And so kids were there. I was one of the babies of the group, but just the until you're ready was around a lot of the conversation that we were having. But I wasn't privileged enough to be able to hear some of my aunties and even my mom really talk about their experiences and details, other than you might want to wait to have a baby until you're absolutely ready, because it's a task. It's something that you need space for, something that you want to be prepared for. And so a lot of that warning or heeding to what they were saying versus just getting to know their experience, I think, is
Mhm.
what I had.
Okay, okay. So with that being said, because and I mean that's pretty common. I feel like every time I ask that question, especially amongst our community, it's pretty much the same. It's like, no, we ain't really talk about it. Or, just the very basics, like don't have no baby till you marry, or don't,
Yes.
some do's and don'ts, but never really like full experiences that have like emotions
Mm-hmm.
tied to it, or excuse me, or like any type of backstory. It's just like, well, why are you telling me that? Instead of there's no why. It's just don't do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's pretty common, but I still like to ask because I'm like, I mean, again, it just kind of
Oh,
shows, oh,
I know it. I know it.
it just goes to show like it just solidifies that whole purpose of talking about it now, so we don't like continue that same cycle of just not sharing these stories, especially since we've had all of these different experiences. They
Mhm.
should be told, like, so we know what to expect in some way,
Yes.
shape, or form, you know what I mean? So if you didn't have like a lot of those deeper conversations about pregnancy and childbirth, like what were your expectations for when you were ready to have a baby? Like, did you have any
For
specific expectations or hopes? Like, was there anything that you had in mind about what your experience would be like?
Ooh. So for me, I thought that getting pregnant would be super easy. Like, oh, you just gotta do the thing, and boom, a baby is there nine
How
months
you say
later.
do the thing.
Yeah, you just gotta do that, and then the baby comes. So my expectation was always like, when I'm ready to have a baby, I'll just have one. And
Mhm.
so I put it off for some time. I said I'm 32, so life was happening. I was in the military. I got married. I was finishing up my degrees, and so I was like, oh yeah, I'll have a baby at 30. That's fine. And so my expectation was just that it would be easy. And what I found out fairly quickly at about 29 and a half, almost 30, is that, oh, this won't be super easy for you. And what does that mean? What will motherhood look like for me? Or will I even have the chance to experience this? And so
Mhm.
my expectations were halted kind of quick when I realized that it wasn't happening as easily for me.
Got you.
Yeah.
Um, so we gonna walk into you just freely telling your story, but one last question before you do that
Yeah.
was, did you plan your pregnancy? Like, tell me about a little bit about your backstory as it pertains to you, like planning. Like, was there a plan in place?
I would say initially no. But once, going through fertility issues and having to be a little bit more specific and detailed about what I wanted my pregnancy to look like, if I could even get pregnant, those things, the plan became get pregnant, go through. I wanted a doula. There's certain things that I knew that I wanted, like I wanted a doula. I knew I didn't want to have a C-section. I knew that I wanted only my husband and I and the doula in the room. So there were certain things that I knew for sure. But there were so many question marks for me as like when that would happen, and what it would look like. So I definitely had the plans in my mind, but it didn't all it didn't all pan out that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to us about how your journey just kind of started up until this point now where we are seeing 4 week old baby
Yes.
here. Like, talk to us about your journey and just kind of tell us like what your journey or experience was like.
Yeah, I want to preface this by saying that fertility for Black women is such a taboo subject, right? Because for a lot of us, or seemingly, we just get pregnant. We just have babies, and that's just what it is. So to be a Black woman who experienced I was diagnosed with unexplained infertility, it kind
Mhm.
of put a damper on what everyone said would be super easy for me. Like, no, it's not. It's not that easy. And so, anyone who out there who has experienced infertility or has been diagnosed with unexplained infertility, I just want to shout out to them because it is extremely difficult to go through this process with the question mark of, will it ever happen for me? And so that's how my journey started of like, oh yeah, you're not getting pregnant, go to the doctor, just get checked, and everything looks fine and there's no reason why I shouldn't, should not be I should be pregnant. Um, but there's no baby. And so my journey started 2 years ago with that question and just going through all of the procedures and things to try to have a baby. I went through 4 rounds of intrauterine insemination, which is like where they place the sperm inside my uterine cavity in hopes that it could be fertilized. Went through that like 4 times. Hold on, my husband is coming to get my baby. Hold on one second.
Okay, no
Come,
problem.
come get him quick, quick.
This a team
Thanks.
effort, okay?
So I went through those procedures in hopes of having a baby, and it didn't work. So there was a lot of emotional turmoil that I felt, as well as physical pain with going through trying to have a baby. There's shots and pills and all sorts of hormones involved. And so that was pretty rough for me. And I love to mention this because again, it's such a taboo thing. And
Mm.
so it just, even thinking about it now, I get emotional because I'm like, there was no space for me to share this experience. Like when we talk about those aunts and even moms and things like that who and within the Black community who don't know, like, girl, what you mean having problems, having a baby? Just do the thing. What do you mean is y'all just, need to have more sex, or you need to relax or stop stressing, or do all these things. And it's like, well, ma'am, it ain't happening like that. That's not what the doctor's saying.
Mhm.
And so going through that journey, finally cut to this year, I went through my first round of IVF and it was unsuccessful. And then I went through my second round of IVF and boom, there's Kason. So throughout that experience, getting to the point of pregnancy was an experience in itself. And so that's my longest skinny of what that was like for me, what that process was. Now, once I became, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, it's okay. I want to limit the questions but I'm so
Yeah.
curious about like, okay, I know you said so originally you say 2 years ago when you and your husband were trying to have a baby and like
Hmm.
nothing was really shaking too much. Um, were you diagnosed with the unexplained, is it unexplained? Can you repeat the term again?
Yeah, it was called unexplained infertility. Just like you're not getting pregnant and we don't know why.
Got it. But was
Hmm.
that like as a result of some tests that they ran, or was it just like, okay, well, we ran all the tests, nothing came up, so this is just what we're gonna call it?
Yeah, it was like they did some what is it called? There was like some sort of, oh my mind, like a iodine screening
Okay.
where they did like they put iodine in my uterus to see if the fallopian tubes were working. They did, of course, all sorts of pelvic exams, uterine exams. And they're like, yeah, everything looks fine. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be pregnant. And to hear something like that and to not have a baby was disheartening because I'm like, okay, you're telling me that there's a problem. We don't know what it is. And so that means that, is it able to be fixed? Is there something
Mhm.
that we can do or not? You
Yeah.
know?
So when the next step of that was the decision to move forward with the insemination, right?
Yes. So they
Um,
assumed that like the getting pregnant naturally wasn't working. So the IUI was like the next step. It's a step above natural conception. And so that was the first procedure that they decided to do.
okay. Do they provide like any type? Because I know like we're therapists, right? But
Hmm.
people oftentimes don't think about like, oftentimes like we need like therapists too, or like somebody to kind of talk to
Yeah.
about it. Were there like any resources to kind of help you navigate this as it from the emotional standpoint, or like as you started to learn all of these new things about yourself, your body, this whole process, like was there like any resources offered as it pertains to like helping you navigate it emotionally?
No,
Mm,
girl, no. And I was like looking for those sorts of things in a time because it really is nerve wracking, it's disheartening, it's depressing. There's a lot of anxiety involved. And so I went on, the internet, Instagram, everywhere, searching for these resources. Like, is there a group I can join? Is there something that I can do? And there was one group that I found, and I won't mention the name, that was geared towards Black women and infertility, and no one had posted in this group since like 2019.
oh
And
wow.
so yeah, so I'm like looking for people to talk to, trying to figure it out, and I was just getting crickets. It wasn't until after I had the baby where these fertility Instagram pages started popping up. I'm like, well, where were y'all for 2 years?
Right,
What
where
is
y'all been
happening?
at? Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
wow. It just like my mind is always just going into like the gaps, like the things as we all start like sharing our stories and we see like, well, what was missing when we went through this, or what didn't we have, like what is needed, what, like those types of
Hmm.
things. So that's interesting to know, like, even when you're dealing with something as complex as like IVF and things like that. Like, I mean, I've seen groups around about IVF, and coincidentally, like I know a couple people who've been through that process. Um, but we never really had a conversation about like all that entails or what that looks
Hmm.
like. So the next round was the IVF, and you
Hmm.
said after the second round is when you got pregnant, right?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. So talk to us like now, sorry to interrupt. I was just
You're
curious about
fine.
all of those things, but after you got pregnant, like what happened?
Ooh, so after I got pregnant, I like to say I had the most vanilla pregnancy ever. Like, I didn't have heartburn. The only thing I really struggled with was figuring out what I wanted to eat. So it was just a matter of just trying to, feed my body because a lot of times I didn't feel like eating, or, nothing sounded good. But I really had the most blessed pregnancy ever, and I'm grateful for that because I know that that is not always normal,
Mhm.
especially for us. So just to be able to experience, low stress during pregnancy was, I feel like breaking a generational curse. Like just being able to just be during pregnancy without too much.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
good to hear because, I one of our previous guests, Joy, she was talking about that. She was like, "Yeah, my first pregnancy was pretty smooth, and I didn't know that that was like the perfect pregnancy until
The
you
second
experience
one.
all these other things." So it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
when you able to have like that calm and just peaceful pregnancy
Mm,
with no problems, complications, like that is a blessing, especially nowadays when we hear like more about what could happen. Just to know like
absolutely.
your experience was good, like is I love to hear that. Um, what was your expectations for giving birth? So did you have a plan in place as far as your, and I think I asked earlier, but did you have a plan in place for giving birth? Like, did you want to have a natural birth or did you want to, was there any particular way you wanted to give birth? Did you have any of that
Mhm.
planned out?
Yeah, I went in there thinking, oh yeah, I would just go in there and push that baby out. Epidural, what's that? Don't need it. Just this whole idea of just doing a thing without needing any help. Like, girl, we just gonna get in there and have this baby, and the baby's gonna come on his due date. Just all of these just really unrealistic expectations for me. My baby came 4 days after his due date, and I had to be induced because there was no dilation whatsoever. And so, this idea of like, oh, my water's gonna break, and I'm just gonna go to the hospital
Mhm,
and just like have this baby and
mhm.
just be done the next day. No, girl, that did not happen whatsoever. So I had to tweak that a little bit in real time as things were
Mhm.
happening. Like, okay, this is very different from what I thought it would be. It is not like the movies, not even a little bit.
Not. Okay, so what was the childbirth experience like? So you said that you went 4 days past the due date and you had to be induced.
Mm, mm.
So what was that experience like giving birth, like actually giving birth, like your labor time and what was that experience like?
Whew, okay, so I went in on a Tuesday, and they checked me. They did a cervical check, and I was a half a centimeter dilated. So
Oh, wow.
immediately I'm like, Lord, we're gonna be here for days because I'm thinking, okay, you gotta get to 10, you gotta get to 10, and I'm at a half. So what does that mean?
Mhm,
And so they started me off with the medication that you put in your mouth. I can't think of it now, forgive me. I think it's called Cyrotec or something, Certec,
mhm.
where it helps to soften my cervix. So we did that like 2 or 3 times every 4 hours. That wasn't doing a whole lot. So they ended up giving me the Foley balloon, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mm-mm.
But they put like this tube with two little plastic things filled with water inside of you to help expand your cervix. And
Oh,
so, yeah, didn't
was
know
that
about that.
painful?
Yeah,
Oh,
yep.
wow.
It
Okay.
didn't feel good. It was super uncomfortable. And you
Yeah.
just think about like, okay, I got these two water balloons, inside of my cervix, and I'm just supposed to sit here and act normal. So I was going through it bad. I was just like, okay, what is happening? How long is this gonna take? Because things are getting progressively more painful. And I thought I was just gonna be able to do this thing. So what's going on?
Mhm.
Um, so we ended up going through that. Long story short, we started the Pitocin, which I'm sure a lot of people probably know about the Pitocin situation, how it helps your contractions come along. So I was going through that, right? Now, mind you, I told you I thought I wasn't going to be on epidural. I thought I was just going to have this baby.
Uh,
So listen, we going through these contractions. My doula's here. We're breathing. We're stretching. We're doing the thing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, getting progressively worse. The pressure, everything. And I was like, but I had this notion in my mind that I needed to get to 6 centimeters. Somewhere along the line, the way I heard that you want to get to 6 centimeters before you introduce epidural because it can start your process. And so
Mm.
I was like, well, I'm at, I think at this point I was at 5 or 4.5 or something. And so I'm like, gotta get to 6. Meanwhile, I'm dying. Like I am on the edge. And my doula actually tapped me out. She was like, girl, I think you can go ahead and get the epidural now. You've done a good job. We all know how strong you are. Like you're
Mhm.
doing well, but if you're gonna do it, now will be the time. You've done enough. And baby,
Look, you say less.
when I released myself from the from the chokehold of needing to get to 6 centimeters, oh, I was feeling good. That epidural was chef's kiss, okay? And I was the one who was always like, no, don't get epidural, because you hear all these things like, oh, you
Mm.
could be paralyzed and you could die. And it's like, no, you could also be feeling real good. And
Okay.
they forget to tell you that part. So I'm gonna tell y'all, y'all can get that
Uh-huh.
epidural. Okay? Get the epidural if you need to, sister.
Okay, look. Somebody else said that too. They was like, "Look, I ain't trying to be no superhero."
Mm-mm.
No,
Having a
but
baby is enough. Yeah.
that's true. That is absolutely true. So I hear you saying, like mentioning your doula, which I think she's on Instagram now. I'm like trying to read
Oh,
it as well. I'm paying attention. But
okay.
so having a doula, like what was that experience like during, because okay, so was a doula with you throughout the pregnancy or just like the childbirthing period or after, like how did that work? How did you decide to get a doula? Like what made you decide to do that?
Okay, so doula to me was this magical world that I wanted to be a part of because that's one of the things that I heard all these girlies that have a soft life, they had a doula. So I'm like, well, I want to be, part of Soft Life Club.
Give me
So
some too. Yes.
so that's how I decided that I wanted a doula. Alyssa is her name. I can't see what's going on Instagram.
That's her.
Um,
Hmm.
but she was an amazing doula. We had little check-ins throughout the beginning and middle of my pregnancy, but she really showed up towards the end, like those last couple weeks right before you get ready to give birth. We did birthing classes. She came to my house to show us how to do some laboring poses right before giving birth, which we got to experience that in the hospital because my water didn't break at home. So I had to do all those things in the hospital. But having her there was such a relief because, the nurses are coming in and out, the midwives are coming in and out, and they're using this language that is not familiar to me because I'm not a doctor. I don't know what's going on. And so having her to be able to explain it in layman terms or just provide that peace or that calmness when things are, the buttons are the noises are beeping and everybody's moving around. It's like, hey, you're okay. This is normal. We're gonna do a few more of these poses. It just really helped to bring peace to a very stressful situation. So I appreciated her being there.
Wow.
And there was a moment, speaking of epidural, there was a moment where I had to get the epidural and I was very nervous and only one person could stay in. So it was either her or my husband. And I chose her because my husband would have had me in there stressed out. Okay. I'm
Not
like, you got me stressed out. I'm trying to get that epidural. You too much.
he freaking
So
out, you freaking out, everybody's just freaking out.
I'm like, I'm gonna need you to leave, and I let the doula stay. So she stayed, and they were getting ready to put the needle in my back, or however they do it. And I had to grab her hand because in that moment I was so scared. I didn't know like what it was gonna be. I didn't know what it was gonna feel like, and just to have someone that knows me and was like able to hold that space for me was the most beautiful part of that experience. Aside from being able to push her, holding one of my legs up, that was when I was like, this is important. It is so important to have somebody here that knows you and that is holding the space for you because otherwise, you just got these nurses who are doing their job, which is fine, but it's something different when you know that this person, regardless of who else, this person is here for me. And
Hmm.
so I think that is super important to have, some sort of birth worker with you if you're able to, because it made a difference for me.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Girl, that was soft life for real.
Okay.
That was very much soft life. I don't know many, although I do know some doulas, I don't know anyone personally who's used a doula, at
Hmm.
least that I can think of off the top of my head. So just to hear like that experience and what it was like. And I think like we're just, even though midwifery and doulas are, you know, it's a really, it's not a new concept, right?
Hmm.
However, like we have not, like in the recent, I would say in like in the last couple decades or so, like I haven't really heard people talk about doulas as much as we talk about them now. Like
Hmm.
even back when I had my daughter, that was 14 years ago, I did know about midwives because I did have a midwife, but like doulas just were not really talked about. But then, like when I talked to like my mom, or I talked to like, or back then, like my grandma, or whatever, like
Hmm.
they knew the term. Like they didn't have one, but they knew the term. Or even in certain spaces, like they would talk about how as a community, like we would care for each other. So women who were like skilled in like helping women give birth, or they were considered like midwives
Hmm.
or doulas, like historically, and I'm talking about way, way back, like that was something that was kind of normal. But
Hmm.
in the more recent years, it's like we didn't really talk about that. So we didn't know like we needed that person there who could help advocate for us, who could
Yeah.
help make things easier. So just to see us getting back into that now is like, to me, it make my heart smile. So I'm glad
Yeah.
you had that experience. So after he came, like, what, tell us. I want to know.
Which part? After he came into the world?
Yes. So
we
after you had, so how much did he weigh? Like what,
Okay.
after, was there a role for your doula like after he was born, and what kind of, in what capacity?
Yeah, so he was 7 pounds and 13 ounces. So I was like, okay, he was a little big boy. And I was proud of that because I didn't have a whole lot of symptoms, so I thought my baby was gonna be bald head. I thought, because I didn't have heartburn. I thought, I thought he was gonna be small because I really wasn't feeling him that much. So I'm like, okay, so just seeing him be here and a head full of hair and all these things, I was, excited, but also a little shocked because that those things I didn't hear about them. I thought if you didn't have heartburn, your baby was gonna be bald. Anyway, so he came out feeling good, looking good, and my doula was there to help my husband cut the umbilical cord. She showed me my placenta. So something I will mention is, I guess in some instances, the doctor will try to rush your placenta coming out. And so we did a slow release. I can't think of the medical term, I'm sorry, but we allowed the placenta to detach naturally.
Mm,
And so that was something that I wasn't aware of before having a doula. Sometimes the doctor will try to pull the cord out so that your placenta can come out quicker. But we were able to sit there and kind of just rest with the baby on my chest as the placenta was able to release naturally. And that took about 30 minutes. So if you're ever looking for a doula or if you're unable to afford one, that is something to make mention of to your healthcare provider, is to allow that placenta to detach normally or naturally, and just to give yourself space after you've given birth, because it's a lot. You got people changing your IV and pushing on your uterus, which is something they don't mention until it's happening, right? And
mm,
all these things are going on, and it's like, wait a minute, give my body time to get out of this space of shock. So
mm.
that was another reason why my dual was helpful.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah, so she helped do the umbilical cord, the placenta. She was taking pictures while I was pushing, which otherwise I wouldn't have those pictures. So just her being just super helpful, a great advocate for us. And afterwards, the baby like naturally navigated to my boob to feed for the first time. So that was pretty cool. It was just a magical experience. I really it's something I would never forget for the rest of my life. Like just having that time to be. I was amazed that the baby was here after so much time of preparing and praying and wanting a child and seeing like, oh, he's here now. He got all his toes and all his fingers, and so it was like a moment to give God thanks for getting us to this point. Being in shock, seeing the blood come out, and just like being present in that moment. So, oh, and something else I forgot to mention, I had them put a mirror in front of me, so while I was pushing, I was able to see the baby coming out.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah, and that
So,
was a cool experience. Hmm.
so how did you feel like just watching him like come like I know that sounds like a weird question, but I
No,
always live
no.
vicariously through other people who done had like these magical experiences that I wish I could have. And I'm like, okay, so what it was like, girl? So what was it like being able to just watch
Whew.
yourself give birth to a human?
It is wild. It is a wild experience. Partly because I didn't feel anything. Shout out to the epidural. So it's like, oh, this is happening, but and I'm seeing it, but I don't feel it. So
Mhm,
being able to see the baby's head coming out, or getting closer to coming out, mentally was helpful for me to continue to push. Because if
mhm,
I didn't have the mirror there, I would just be like, okay, is anything happening, guys? Because
mhm.
I'm pushing, I'm running out of breath, but
Right.
I don't feel anything. So that was good as well. And once the baby's head was getting closer to coming out, they allowed me to touch him there. They was like, put your hand down there so you could feel his head. So I was able to feel his head and his hair. And it was just, it's wild. You're giving birth to a human. Yeah.
Yes. So was that your request or how did the whole mirror thing happen?
So I had heard about it before, like, oh yeah, you can watch yourself. And I want to say I heard about it through the real Jeannie Mai on the real. She said that she gave birth that way, and I was like, oh, you can have a mirror. But then in a moment, I forgot about it. But then one of the nurses, or maybe even my doula, I can't remember, was like, oh, do you want a mirror? I was like, yeah. And
Oh,
so the hospital offered it. So it happened naturally that way. Yeah.
they getting real fancy now. 'Cause I'm like 14 years ago. I don't know what I don't even remember any I don't even remember. I think all I remember is like watching TLC when they used to that show with
Uh,
the whole birth story thing. Like I think that's the
uh-huh.
only reference like that I had of anything remotely close. But okay, so you had Kason,
Mhm.
you allowed your body time for the placenta to come out on its own. Was there anything particularly special about the placenta coming out? Like were you able to like keep it or the hospital took it? Or what was that?
No, so I didn't keep it. I didn't do enough research on why it was important or necessary to, so I kind of just let it go. But it was cool to look at because it looks like, if you've never seen a placenta before, it looks like a little tree, with all the veins and things. It was just another moment of awe for me. I think I was just in awe and wonder of, just the process of giving birth, just God's faithfulness throughout, and just the idea of we're meant to do this, we can do this, and how your body just naturally does what it needs to do. So it was more about just seeing it and for all of its glory was enough for me to feel really good about that part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was good. All right, so share anything. Okay, after you had
Hmm.
Kason, what was your like healing experience like? Like anything, um, were there any like special things that happened, or is there something that you want to highlight as far as like as your healing journey started postpartum?
So I'm well into postpartum now. I think one thing that I was afraid of going into post baby is tearing. That's something that they almost, from days, the internet and things of like, oh, you're going to tear. You want to make sure that are prepared for your tear. And so I had all these, like, I made all these padsicles with aloe vera and witch hazel, and they're all freezing, throughout this time in preparation for me to tear and having to go through this painful post birth experience. And I did not tear at all. So So the one thing I would mention for women going into this is to do your research and be prepared, but also be optimistic, because everybody's horror birth story won't be yours. And so,
Mhm.
give space for your own experience to happen so that we're not just all, in fear for our lives of what
Mhm.
could be. So that was something I took away from my experience, because although it, hurt a little bit when I first started going to the bathroom again, I didn't have that, horrible burning sensation that I was warned about, and told about over and over again. So just giving space for your own experience to do its thing. Um, Emotionally though, I think for my first week post baby, I probably cry every day.
Mhm.
And there was like good tears, again, just being in awe and wonder of having a baby, but also like, oh my gosh, this is an everyday thing. We don't, the baby don't go nowhere. The baby comes home with you. You got the baby every day, 24 hours. And just that realization of, oh, this is my life now. This is how this works, was shocking to me. I didn't, for some reason, didn't click before. You go through your pregnancy, and you got this little baby bump, and then you have the baby, you're in the hospital, you're feeling all safe, and then baby waking up at 2 a.m. and nobody talks about that part. That's not the cute part. We don't be posting about when the baby wake up at 2 a.m. and you're exhausted and the baby need to eat. Or breastfeeding, and how intense breastfeeding can be, how it hurts at first a little bit, and then you find your groove. And so learning all these things in real time postpartum, was mentally exhausting for me, emotionally exhausting for me. And so giving space for the women who, or really just trying to normalize for the women who do experience those emotional highs and lows throughout your postpartum experience. I want to normalize that, because I thought I was going to be, in bliss, just, oh, me and my baby every day. We just love each other so much. It's like, no, I'm going to take this shower and I know this baby crying. The baby got a daddy. We're gonna let the baby be with his father, and I'm gonna go take a shower. And so just normalizing those sort of feelings so that you can get back to yourself. And it does take time, and you are doing a good job, and it is worth it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So now you are 4 weeks out. Um,
Hmm.
do you start to see things changing? Like, are you kind of finding your groove? And like, what is it like now? Like that you've had like a few weeks to kind of settle in. What's your experience like now?
It's been better. Like these days, I'm breastfeeding. So my milk is coming in more and more every day. So that's been beautiful to witness. To know that I'm feeding my baby just gives me, a bit of hope and, joy and all those things. Um, Overall, I think I've been doing better just with the idea of this is a forever thing, So I think mentally wrapping my mind around that has been better these days. But I've really just been taking it one day at a time, because the baby is still very new. And so some days he sleeps, pretty good. And then other days, again, it's 2, 3 a.m. And I'm looking at baby looking at me, and we're like, who's going to go to sleep first, And so I'm trying to figure out what that looks like from a day to day. I have to give myself grace, because man, I don't
Absolutely.
know. I don't know. It could be totally different tomorrow. But today I feel good, and I felt pretty good yesterday, and that's all I know. I hope I feel good tomorrow too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I see Glam and Pretty. She said, "Yes, you're doing amazing, sweetie." And Alyssa said, "I'm so proud of you." So
Oh, thank
definitely
you.
a
Thank you. Thank
strong
you.
support system, I can tell. And
Yeah.
that's another thing that I think that we need to talk about more, because even like I was talking about before how back in the day there was like this community of like women who took care of, you know, us when we gave birth and all of these things,
Mhm.
right? So this is just kind of like a reminder, like that support system is so necessary. I think about my own experience too, where you know that support system, if I didn't have that support system or if we didn't have support systems, like where it would be crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even want to imagine what it would have been like, but they are like rooting you on in the chat.
Oh, good. Thank y'all.
So yes, and I'm glad that you are like taking things one day at a time. And like, I mean, I think like you the newest mom we had on
Oh,
here so far. Everybody else, they old mama's child. Like they like my kids like 10, 6, like, you know, so
oh.
just
Mhm.
hearing the experience of someone who literally just had a baby is so necessary. Like, you know, and even the fact that you were up to even sharing your story so close to
Mhm.
you know, you giving birth, like is I'm grateful for you for wanting to do it. So
Thank you.
if you knew then what you know now, like would you change anything or do anything differently? Like, is there anything that you think about, like, okay, had I known this before, you know, I would have done this different, or maybe next time I would do this differently?
Mhm. Hmm. I think what I would do differently is before, prior to having giving birth, take more time off of work.
Mhm.
Because as a therapist, I pretty much worked until I didn't have the capacity to work anymore. And then by that time, I was already burned out. So I think that giving yourself a little bit more space before, we all talk about maternity leave, that happens after, but giving yourself a little bit more space before you have the baby to just be with yourself
Mhm.
is important, because once the baby comes, it is a constant, go 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 go, and you might not get. It might be a while before you get some uninterrupted time. So I wish I would have did a little bit more of that. I did listen to my mom friends who were like, "Girl, take a break," and I did, but I wish I would have took more time, because I took a break and then a week later the baby was here, and
Yeah.
so yeah, that's the only thing. Other than that, I feel pretty good about my experience. I'm grateful for my support system. They have been cheering me on since, 2 years ago when I was first trying to have a baby. So I'm grateful for them. They are the baby's aunties. And when it's time for me to be back outside, I hope they got their
Okay,
schedules together.
stick around, stick
Yes,
around.
absolutely.
Yes. So, what is one piece of advice you would give a Black mama who is embarking on this pregnancy journey, and this whole motherhood journey? Like, what's one piece of advice you would give?
I would remind them that their body is made to do this. And so, regardless of how long it takes, when it happens for you, you are made to do this. You can do this, and you're gonna feel all the feelings. So embrace all of those things as it's coming, but keep that reminder of, I can do this. I can do the hard things,
Mhm.
and to stay present, because even now, I have my baby here, but I miss, the sensation of being pregnant, feeling those kicks and things like that. And so just reminding them to embrace those moments of pregnancy, because they are fleeting. It's not going to be there forever. And so to be present with themselves, to give grace, and remind them that they're strong and they can do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This was so good. And first of all, your personality is so amazing. So
Oh.
I just, I'm like, I've been laughing the whole time because I'm like, oh, Brandy say we ready. So when you ready to be outside, Brandy,
Oh,
and we
okay.
and we all see this on the chat. So Brandy say she ready. So yes, I appreciate you coming on and just willing to share your story. I do want to give you space or time to, if you wanted to expound on anything or share anything we might have missed. I know I had some questions, but I know I probably missed some things. But if you want to share anything else, feel free about your experience.
No, I think I'm okay. I just, again, for anyone who may be struggling with infertility or have been given a diagnosis of unexplained infertility, I want to be a beacon of hope for them in that, you know, whatever that diagnosis is, it is not final, right? It's not permanent, and it doesn't mean that you can't have a baby. So if it's something that you want to do, please continue to try. You know, please continue to seek out those resources. Do the work. You know, Google was my best friend trying to figure out what was next for me. So I had a whole bunch of questions, you know, in going to the doctor's office. But don't ever stop believing that it could happen for you too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you. Please tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your practice, how you service people, or what do you have going on that you want the people to know?
Okay, so my business again is Sisterhood and Wellness, my therapeutic practice. You can find me on Sisterhood and Wellness on Instagram, as well as for.realness.sake on Instagram. I do have a podcast where you can go and listen to some of my old episodes. I have not uploaded anything recently. Laura, I don't even know if my podcast people even know I had a baby. So, you know, we're gonna get we're gonna get back on there soon and, you know, update, but the podcast is how I got started with even wanting to be in this space and talk freely about the things that I've gone through. And so, if you need some encouragement or a good laugh, you can check out the For the Sake podcast. And you know, hopefully, I have some more things going on soon after I get finished with my maternity leave. But yeah, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
No, you are so welcome. Thank you. This was a good conversation. Are you taking clients when you come back from maternity leave? Will you be taking new clients on?
Yes, yes, I do have some slots available. So reach out to me by clicking the link in my bio on the Sisterhood and Wellness IG, and then it'll take you to my website, and you can put in an inquiry there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so, so much. We
Thank
will
you,
chat
Kieara.
soon.
Yes.
And I hope this is not the last time that we get to sit together and talk. And we have some things coming up too with like our Take 10 campaign. We're doing an event coming up this year, like later in the year.
Okay.
And Preeclampsia Awareness Month is starting on Wednesday, May 1st. So May is
Oh,
Preeclampsia Awareness Month. So if there are like any opportunities for us to connect later, I would love to.
please.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna let you get back to casing and
Thank
enjoy the
you.
rest of your day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will be in touch soon.
Okay. Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Later.